This is a powerful week of transition when we have a supermoon lunar eclipse plus the equinox. And we are also in the midst of a closing chapter in our collective human experience. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, and I work together with an interdimensional, interuniversal, and extraterrestrial force known as Telstar, along with Archangel Michael. My goal is to help you navigate the chaos on this planet so that you can stay on an ascension path of natural human evolution. Now, before I talk about the massive transition that is underway on this earth, I have two quick announcements. Now, in my last video, I mentioned to you guys about my book, The Final Elimination of the Source of Fear. And what happened was, a bunch of you guys went to Amazon and it sold out right away, which is great. But no worries if you missed it, because we just shipped a whole lot more back over to Amazon. They should be there any day now if you want to go back to Amazon and pick one up, and I will put the link in the description. My second announcement is this. So I recently discovered that I have lots of notebooks full of printouts of channelings that I did, articles that I wrote, just amazing. I mean, there's a lot. And they're just sitting there and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? So here's what I did. I do have an email subscriber list. So I decided to create, only for my email subscribers, and this is entirely free, what I call my secret archive. I send an email out every Friday. So in that archive, sometimes I will put something that I wrote in previous years, and sometimes I'll even put a channeled article in there. And so far, my subscribers are really loving this feature. So I want to invite any of you who would like to be in my email family and hear from me every Friday with another article, surprise, or my whatever thoughts I want to share about current events, or maybe things I don't share here on YouTube. Just get on my email list. It's free. There's no charge. And I will also put that link down below, and I'd love to see you there if you feel so inclined. Okay, so let's get into today's topic. I think that we currently have two distinct parts to our lives that are not necessarily in sync with each other. The first part is our individual private lives, where we are basically trying to hold it together as best we can. And the second part consists of massive forces of upheaval that are trying to change our planet into something else entirely. And I almost feel like the energy of our private lives reminds me of someone trying to hold on in the middle of a massive storm that is underway. Do you guys ever feel like that? Let me know in the comments. I'm just curious. Now, you might remember a little while ago that I was talking about how we need to be almost like a tree with very deep roots. We want to have deep roots on physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional levels so that when these storms of change and transition come, we will not be thrown off course or maybe even destroyed by those changes. The problem is there are a lot of people on this planet who are really obsessed with very superficial things. And that would be sort of like a tree with very shallow roots that can be easily blown over, easily knocked over. And the controllers of this planet know this. Their goal is to keep us all as dumbed down as they possibly can. I actually think there are hidden corporate forces operating through the internet and through social media that are trying to make people as unconscious and detached from their own lives and bodies as much as possible, because that's what enables them to control us so effectively. And now, because of the internet, we're seeing this happen at levels never seen before. As an example, look at the obsession with Taylor Swift. Now, I kind of think of her music as just something for recreational listening. But people look up to her like she is some kind of a god or goddess, whatever you want to call her. But honestly, to me, I look at her and I think, well, she just looks like a very ordinary person. I mean, honestly, I kind of feel like she's the epitome of what is ordinary. Now, it's possible she could be a super smart person, and in many ways, she might be given her position and how she got there, but that's not my point. My point is the controllers want us to worship the most ordinary, dumbed down version of ourselves as possible. And if the controllers had their way, they would definitely want us to strive to be pretty much nothing at all. Just as an example, right now, they basically want us to worship things such as Taylor Swift, such as Stanley Cups. I mean, we wouldn't even know these things existed if they didn't put them in our face all the time. You know what it makes me think of? Have you guys ever seen those laser pointers that people use to play with cats, where they get the cat to chase this laser pointer and the cat will pounce on it and there's literally nothing there? That's kind of what this stuff reminds me of. Like, oh, people focus over here and people are just like those cats chasing a laser. Like, oh yes, this is so important. But there's literally nothing there. And do we ever think about who is orchestrating this kind of thing behind the scenes? See, if they can turn us into literal dumb animals who cannot think a thought on our own, they can take us in any direction they want simply by causing us to react to whatever it is they put in front of us. And I think it's so important to stay awake and aware of these tactics so that we don't inadvertently it's kind of like it can enter our minds and we don't even realize that it can be making us feel kind of superficial at the same time. See, there are so many little things that are going on that actually represent how these controllers are closing a chapter on our human intelligence. How they're attempting to close the chapter on our former selves as conscious, free-thinking human beings. So that's one way, by constantly keeping us at very, very superficial levels of consciousness, by grasping people's attention. And I've just given you a couple of tiny examples. I'm sure you could probably think of hundreds of examples. See, they have been trying to transition this planet for a very long time. But I want to remind you that in order to do that, they have to uproot all of us on a collective basis, so that we're easy to move around and so that we're easy to manipulate in the process of how they intend to make this transition. Now, back in 2020, when the big health issue arose, we were all separated from each other. We were covering our faces so we couldn't even see each other's expressions. We were supposed to stay apart from each other. We were isolated. That was all part of it. And now it's going a step further. And I want to talk a little bit about the censorship issue. I don't know if a lot of people look at it in the way that I'm going to describe it, but I actually see it as a way to further isolate us from each other so that we are unable to exchange thoughts and ideas. So first, they isolated us physically and emotionally for a couple years starting in 2020, and now they want to isolate us from each other mentally. Now, when you censor speech, you also shut down thought. Why is that? Because thoughts are meant to be expressed. Let's just look for a moment at our deepest true nature as human creators, as cosmic infinite beings. We are beings of light. Our energy is meant to radiate outwards. We have a higher intelligence that is meant to filter down into our physical experience and express itself outwardly. So thoughts need to be released. They need to be expressed. When you shut down one's ability, or you shut down the ability of a thought to be expressed freely, those thoughts tend to die very quickly. It's just like if you had a plant and you prevented any light from reaching the plant's going to die. And this, I know this is kind of an odd way to look at it, but if you really think of it, it kind of makes sense. In our human collective, our thought processes are meant to function like an ecosystem. In other words, it's like, well, let's just picture an ideal scenario. Okay, an ideal scenario would look like this. Human beings are fully awake and aware that we are here on planet Earth to evolve. We are fully awake and aware that we are meant to be higher beings of love, higher consciousness, light, and all of those good things. And we understand that our role here is to evolve from that place as our center of orientation and move forward as best we can through this situation of a finite world that's immersed in duality. So in that process, each one of us being unique individuals, having our own very unique experiences, we have ideas occur to us. We have creativity wanting to come through us. We have a lot of things that we are meant to exchange with each other. It doesn't mean we agree all the time. It just means that a free flow of thought is essential to the health of our humanity. It's also essential to our ability to collectively evolve. So what's been happening here is a lot of division, as I said before, physically and emotionally, a lot of programming about who should be in what camp, who should be in what tribe. It's become very, very tribal. And basically what I've described so far is kind of like the noose tightening. And now what they really want to shut down is thought. It's not so much speech they want to shut down, because speech is the product of thought. What they really want to shut down is all manner of true free thinking. Because the next phase, or like I don't know if it's the next phase, but it's certainly the coming phase that they have in mind, is that we don't think at all, because AI will control our thoughts. So this is part of the process. And I know that this all looks on the surface to be, oh, this is just all so political, right? But that's just the superficial version of it. When you look at things from an evolutionary perspective, you see things much more deeply, much more comprehensively, and much more holistically, and you can thus have a much greater understanding of what is actually going on this planet Earth. And then there's the other interesting thing they're doing, which is mixing, just picture a planetary civilization, which is what we are as a humanity, right? And so I think these controllers thought, you know what, let's create some more chaos. Let's really get everybody very confused. Let's take all these different cultures and just throw them all together in a pile, no instructions, no explanation, and just see what happens. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because you'd think you'd at least have a little more, if you wanted to do that, you should probably have a little more intelligence around the way in which you do that. Honestly, I was trying to imagine, I had this thought, I thought, now, I'm sure many of us have pets, we have cats and dogs, right? Now, what if you threw a bunch of dogs and a bunch of cats in a room together, no plan, no transition, no anything. And you shut the door and you said, have at it, guys, good luck. And then you left. Probably wouldn't go very well. And I know you guys know this because, I don't know, have you ever had a dog and then you got a pet cat and you had to introduce them to each other, and it's kind of a big deal. I mean, you supervise that. You do that very carefully because you want them to get along, right? But that's not what these controllers do. No, they just want to throw a bunch of people together in a pile, walk away and say, good luck, guys, have at it. But see, that it's really just more chaos, more confusion, no thinking aloud, etc. Now, I want to offer you guys a chance to look at this from an extraterrestrial perspective, which you know I advocate for, which means step back from planet Earth, take an objective view, and then pay attention to what you see. If you think about everything I've just described here, and you think about those who, I guess you could say they're currently in control of this planet, you would have to be looking at the most incompetent group of people you have ever met in your entire existence. These people are so incompetent. They have no idea what they're doing. They're throwing people together that without any thought at all about anything. They're shutting people down. They're dividing people. They're doing all the stuff I described, right? And they're so incompetent. And this is their idea of a transition to a different kind of world. Come on, this is nuts, right? Okay, let's look at another possible scenario. What do you think it would look like if you had forces at work on this planet that wanted to transition this planet into a higher level of being, into something that was enhancing of humanity, that had a benevolent idea in mind? They would be coming from love. They would do things vastly differently, wouldn't they? But that's not what these controllers are doing. I mean, these entities are as incompetent as it gets. The reason I'm saying it this way is because these guys literally believe that they are qualified to run a planet. They believe they are qualified to control the planet's climate. How about just dissect what's going on with the planet's climate, which they have no idea. They believe they are qualified to be in charge of all the species on Earth, including humans. And they're not qualified. That's what we need to understand. They're not qualified. They're crazy. They're incompetent. So we do not want to get swept up into the energy of their massive level of ignorance. Now you might say, oh, Saratoga, we would never be that stupid. We wouldn't get swept away into that. If you put yourself at the level of the events unfolding on planet Earth, and you consider yourself to be a character in that movie, if you will, it's going to affect your consciousness. It's going to make you feel lesser than who you really are. So I'm trying to help you all have more of an objective view, which you can only have by standing back from the planet itself, to have more of an objective view of this entire scene for the purpose that you don't inadvertently identify yourself as being a part of it. Maybe, of course, you would probably say you're a good part of it, but we don't want to be a part of this at all. We might be living on Earth, we might be navigating our lives on Earth, but we don't want to see ourselves as being a part of this situation. Instead, we can see ourselves as, here we are. Our role to evolve as natural human beings does not change just because a bunch of crazy controllers are trying to ruin the Earth. But I also want to mention the fact that behind the scenes of all this superficial chaos and shutting down and all this stuff that they're doing to humans collectively, behind the scenes, they are feverishly working on this infrastructure, a planetary infrastructure of AI control. I think we all know this, right? And so they're busy little beavers, right? I mean, they're working really hard to mess up this Earth as best they can because they just don't know anything else. They're not, like I said, they're not the brightest bulbs in the room, right? They're just not. I mean, it's obvious. And really their larger goal is to close the chapter on what they see as our previous human, natural, biological experience of the Earth. That's the chapter they intend to close. They intend to turn this into something vastly different. I'm not going to get into that here in this video because you probably know that could go on for a real long time. But for today, I want to stay focused on what is relevant right now at this particular moment in time. So I want to talk to you about this supermoon lunar eclipse and the coming equinox that follows shortly thereafter. I'm not an astrologer, so I'm not going to talk about it on that level. I want to talk to you about it in a very simple, practical way that has to do with our basic nature here on Earth. We need to think about what these things actually mean to us at in very close proximity. Just pause for a moment and realize we are talking about massive bodies in space. Planet Earth, compared to us, is huge. The sun is even way bigger than that. And then we have this moon that is a very large body in space compared to us. And then, of course, there are corresponding forces. There are the other planets, there's the solar system, there's the galaxy. All of these things are fully present right now. All of these things exert a continuous influence on our planet because, believe it or not, there is actually harmony, coherence, and design, intelligent design in this universe. So we are being influenced when we look at something like an eclipse or a full moon or the equinox, we're talking about the movement of these huge bodies in space and the energetic influence that they have upon us. They also have an influence on these controllers, and I think they know that. And as a side note, if you think the Earth is flat, I disagree. It's not flat. If you think this is all just one big computer simulation, well, all I can say is have fun with that. That sounds like a pretty miserable version of hell if you ask me. Also, it's not true. I don't get the computer simulation thing. That is just so, in my opinion, that is so lame. I mean, really? Computers? Computers created the whole universe? Come on, guys. Let's get a little more romantic than that, right? I mean, seriously, that's not even inspiring. That is just like horrible. So I'm really happy that it's not true. But if you want to live as though it is true, of course, you're free to do so. I just don't know where you go from there. What do you do with that? You're kind of stuck. You know, if we have gotten to a place where we literally accept the idea that the whole universe is a computer simulation, you know what I would say to that? I would say, man, AI is good. AI has actually gotten us to adopt that thought as being real. Seriously, that's pretty amazing. Because what that represents is the intent of AI to make that real for us. So if you're already buying it and it hasn't even happened yet, well, you're just way ahead. You're way ahead of everyone else. So we have these massive bodies in space that have their own cycles. Let's just look at the equinox. That is a transitional point. That represents a transition from one season to the next. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's beautiful how these seasons unfold with such grace, with such beauty and harmony. So we have nature, which effortlessly and gracefully moves with that transition of seasons. And then we have the crazy controllers who only want to fight against it, right? So they're aware of these cosmic influences, but like everything else they do, they want to try and harness those influences to work for their advantage. So it's probably a good thing to be aware of because I think if you just tune in, you can kind of feel that they also understand that this is a cosmic transition that's natural, that happens all the time, that they would love to align with that energy and use it to their benefit for their ridiculous agenda. So we have that going on. That's why I said, remember at the beginning, I said there were two things happening. There was this massive underpinning of a transition that they're trying to take the whole planet through. And then we have our individual lives. Now, I want to put our individual lives in a bigger context, because otherwise it starts to look like, oh man, those controllers and their agenda and AI and all that stuff, that's so much bigger than we are as individuals. Okay, let's shift that perspective for a moment. And let's remember that as natural human beings, we are actually a part of something far, far beyond these controllers and their ridiculous agenda, which is kind of like a cartoon in a way, isn't it? We are connected to something that is incredibly powerful. Let me remind you guys of something. These controllers did not create the universe. They did not create planet Earth. They didn't create the sun. They didn't create the galaxy. They didn't create our solar system. They didn't create any of this. None of it. And worse yet for them, they want no part of any of it. They don't want to be aligned with it. They want to steal from it and use it for their own benefit. Now, who do you think has the ultimate advantage? Those of us who understand that we are a part of something far, far, far bigger and more powerful than they could ever even hope to conceive of. They can't conceive of it because they've decided they don't want anything to do with it. What is the it that I'm talking about? The natural universe. You know, the one they did not create. The one that created the earth that they're literally standing on and wouldn't even exist if the earth wasn't here. But they don't get that. That's why I say they're not the brightest bulbs in the room. They're very dim-witted. There's a very dim light where their intelligence is supposed to be. It's like really, really dark in there. You know, there's not a lot of light. And light is intelligence. Light is higher intelligence, and they don't have much. They've got like a little spark maybe of something, but it's not enough to really do anything meaningful. So I want to alert you to the fact that this is a really great time for us to awaken even more to the power of what we're actually a part of, so that we can align with a more powerful transition that is so natural and so harmonious, we maybe tend to not even notice it sometimes. But that we are part of a more powerful transition than the reverse flow transition these controllers are trying to enact on this earth. Do you realize that these characters are trying to go against everything that is natural? They're trying to go against the whole natural universe, because Earth does not function in isolation from the rest of the galaxy. It doesn't function in isolation from other interdimensional aspects in nature that it is an integral part of. So let's take just a moment to contemplate the power of these cosmic forces on this Earth. How many species of life are on planet Earth? There are plants, there are animals, there are insects, there are an uncountable number of living beings, things that are alive. Isn't it amazing that every single one of these life forms functions in perfect synchronicity with the movements of these cosmic spheres? They almost effortlessly seem to glide into these seasonal transitions of life. And these transitions are so important. Like here on Earth, we have summer and winter, right? It's almost like we have day and night. It's almost like a breath. It's the yin and the yang of life itself. And isn't it amazing that you can look at nature? If you're in the northern hemisphere, we're moving into fall. And you can see the trees starting to change. You can see all of the wild animals beginning to prepare. And guys, there's no management for this. There's no government. There's no hierarchy of people in charge or creatures in charge telling everyone what to do. It's astonishing that every living thing just moves with the flow of those cosmic energies. It's incredible. Why don't we take this week ourselves to become a part of something that is so awesomely powerful, yet so gentle, yet so beautiful, yet so lovingly amazing? And then you look at the controller's version of a transition. Their version is, hey, this might be a good week to start a world war. Yeah, that's the ticket. Let's start a world war this week. How's that for a transition? I mean, this is how ridiculous these entities are. So why don't we combine two ideas? The first idea being the one I mentioned in an earlier video of deep roots into reality, deep roots into our spirituality, our physical nature, our mental and emotional states at the highest possible level, at the highest possible frequency of energy and light and power and empowerment and evolution. Why don't we get so anchored in that and then recognize that the literal cosmic universe exists in support of that and be a part of that? And then as individual human beings, we decide the transitions that we are going to make in our own lives. I'm sure every single one of us can think right now about a positive transition that we know we can make, we know we need to make, something in our personal lives, some way that we can elevate our lives, make it better, become stronger, healthier, whatever it is for you. So when you start with the acknowledgement of what you actually are a part of and how the whole universe is in support of you, and then you exercise your ability to intend your own evolution as a being, we can put ourselves in sync with this cosmic transition and intend to keep moving forward on our journey in the universe. If more people saw it this way on this planet, it would actually make it more difficult for these controllers to pull off their nefarious plans. Why? Because it would mean there's more natural energy that is more powerful and stronger than they are. It would mean there's more human creator energy that is natural and more powerful and stronger than they are. Because we're not alone. We're not sitting here on planet Earth all alone and these terrible creatures are doing awful things to us and to the earth. We're not alone, you guys. We are part of something huge. And I'll finish with this. We are human creators. We have a power that we often fail to recognize. We are meant to be the stewards of this planet Earth. We are meant to be the stewards of whatever planet we are on. That's why we are designed the way that we are as creators. So when we align with reality, when we align with the nature of the universe itself, which includes planet Earth and includes our natural design as humans, we align with a power greater than all the junk that is being thrown at us by these controllers. This is what I want to invite you to consider, and also invite you to remember to be more conscious so that you're not inadvertently swept into all their superficial nonsense that they use to try and dumb us down, make us as stupid as possible, and stop us from thinking anything other than the thoughts that they want us to think. So with all that said, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you have found it helpful. And if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would enjoy a very different perspective. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell because I am here on Tuesdays with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Namaste.